200cc time trial leaderboard was pretty interesting for Mario Kart PC in October of 2024. There are people like F-Ways, Luigi Boy, and JPG all around 10 points away from each other in solid places. Then you have Limey, who is way ahead of everybody else below him. And then there's Ahmad, pretty much making a joke of the competition. He was so far ahead of everybody else that it seemed like he would be staying for a very long time. He had already been the champ of 200cc for 3 years now, and with how things were looking, that didn't look like it was going to change. However, in November, Ahmad started losing world records, and his points started going down. He went down to the 30s, then the 20s, the lowest he had ever had in years. What was going on? Was Ahmad finally going to get dethroned? And at the very same time, a new person joined the top of the leaderboards. Kinyo. At this time, barely anybody knew who Kinyo was. Was he the reason Ahmad was losing all those points? Did he actually have the skill to keep up with him? Within months, Kinyo started getting world record after world record. Kinyo wasn't currently thinking about beating Ahmad, but he had an opportunity. This was Kinyo's chance. Maybe this is the end of Ahmad's reign. But Ahmad wasn't going to give up that easy. He was going to give it all he had to keep himself as number one. Let's clarify some things first. Why was Ahmad able to keep the top spot for so long? The answer is actually very simple. 200cc was less competitive. A lot of the top runners of 150cc didn't really do 200cc, and those few who did only really did some of the tracks. So Ahmad basically had no threats since no other top runners really wanted to try 200cc. Over the years, competition grew, and sometimes he did have minor threats, like JPG in 2022 and Hazel and Limey in early 2024. However, they were very minor and could only take a few of the records away from him. He was basically dominated the rest of the game. Kinyo, however, was very different. He was actually one of the very few who really grinded in 200cc, but he didn't really touch 150cc as much. Now, that Kinyo was one of the few who actually grinded 200cc as much as Ahmad, and actually had the skill to take him down. He started to get to work. Kinyo was doing whatever he could to beat any of his times and get to the top. By the end of November, he was in the top 20. Just a few weeks later, he joined the top 10. He was already starting to close in. However, he was still far away from him. But the good news is that Ahmad was down to under 520 points, the lowest he's ever had since the start of 200cc. Kinyo still had a long way to go though. He wasn't a huge threat to Ahmad yet. However, over the next few months, that was going to change. Kinyo was rising up the ranks fast, and that wasn't going to change. Ahmad wasn't really that active on 200cc and trying to take back his records. This was exactly what Kinyo needed. Kinyo was one of the only top 200cc players right now that was active, and almost everybody else was inactive. He could easily climb up the leaderboards. Right now, Kinyo wasn't a threat to take the #1 spot from Ahmad, but he was at least going to make a stand. This was Kinyo's ultimate grind. Kinyo was now in 5th place, the highest he has ever been. But in April of 2025, Kinyo was taking a break for a little bit. But something strange happened during that time. You see, even though during this time where both Ahmad and Kinyo were mostly inactive, Ahmad's points were still going down. And by near the end of April, Ahmad was down to under 510. This was the lowest he had ever been since the first few days of 200cc coming out. Well, what changed? You see, Kinyo wasn't the only person grinding to join the top 10. Right behind him was 2 new people who just joined the top ranks. Their names were World Record and Maximum. These 2 both joined around the beginning of 2025, and around April of that year, they quickly rose up the ranks. These 2 were also pretty good at 150cc, with each of them having over 300 points. But By the end of April, Kinyo was back from his break. Kinyo was once again going to grind to beat Ahmad, but this time he wasn't alone. Kinyo was now in 4th place by the summer of 2025, and because of Kinyo, maximum and world record boosting their scores, Ahmad was now down under 500 points. This had never happened before. The only 2 people Kinyo needed to beat before Ahmad was Limey and Hazel. Ahmad needed to do something quick, or else Kinyo might beat him. But still, Ahmad didn't really do much. His world records were dwindling down. At one point, Ahmad had all 56 world records to his name. But now, by the summer of 2025, Ahmad was down to less than 20. At the end of July, Kinyo had moved up to 3rd place. And when September started, Kinyo moved up to 2nd place, right behind Ahmad. And by then, more and more people were starting to believe that Kinyo could actually beat Ahmad. It was starting to become a reality. So then on the 10th of September, Kinyo had decided to make a team with some of the best Mario Kart PC players to try to collectively team up and break Ahmad's world records. Kinyo and his team knew that he was so close to beating Ahmad. This would be Ahmad's final stand, and Kinyo's final push for the top spot. Kinyo had managed to tie up with Ahmad for the first time ever. Somebody needed to break one of Ahmad's records to make Kinyo the true champion of 200cc, and 40 minutes later that day it happened. For the first time ever, someone else was the 200cc champion. However, while this was going on, Kinyo was saying some controversial things about this game that made a lot of people mad. So shortly after Kinyo got the champion title, he decided to quit the game. He decided to do this due to the things he was saying and how other people were treating him for liking 200cc more than 150cc. He didn't want to become the villain, so he thought that it would be best to leave. Some people thought it was a joke or for attention seeking, but he didn't log on for days, and then weeks, and then months. And in November, a month after Kinyo left, Ahmad had reclaimed the top spot. It seemed like Kinyo was really telling the truth, and it seemed like he wasn't going to return anytime soon. Ahmad had once again become the champion of 200cc. However, in February of 2026, over half a year later, Kinyo returned. By now, Kinyo had fallen down all the way back to 460 points. He was back to being 18 points away from Ahmad. Ahmad had used this time wisely, getting rid of as many Kinyo world records as possible. After 6 months of not playing, Kinyo was pretty rusty. Could he still get world records? Kinyo had once again done it, despite not playing for 6 months. That is pretty impressive. But what happens now? To this day, Kinio and Ahmad are still actively grinding and pushing each other to claim the #1 spot for themselves. Kinio and Ahmad are both incredibly talented players at this game, but no one can ever hold on to the top spot forever. But their legacy will stay for new generations to come. After Kinio and Ahmad's battle is over, there will always be someone after them to finish the job. Maybe someone from the top 10 could do it, or maybe someone else could completely come out of nowhere and destroy everybody. Who knows what could happen? That story will one day be told, but that day is not today. Wherever these two go, we will know they will do great things. This was the story of beating Ahmad. Thanks for watching.